pleased to welcome Debra Benton to MCB. She's been a friend. Oh, I guess you didn't turn on their microphone. I got the teacher voice. I don't need a microphone. Okay. So, thank you all for coming. Welcome to MCB. And we're pleased to welcome Debra Benton, who is a friend of MCB, has been for several years. We were talking earlier, I don't actually remember how she got on my radar, but years ago we had a nonprofit area. We did a summer institute for nonprofit executives, and she spoke there. That was the first time that we had met. And she's been a nice friend to us since then, and even taught a class for us several years ago now. So we're pleased to welcome her back. So she is an author of 11 books. We have 3 of them up here, including the New York Times bestseller, How to Think Like a CEO, and her most recent one is The Leadership Mind Switch, which you contributed to. Oh, page 214. In addition to being an author, she works with people on an individual basis as a mentor and a coach, and she's into being as a speaker. Her expertise has brought her front page coverage in Wall Street Journal, USA Today. She's also been interviewed on The Today Show, Good Morning America, CNN, CBS. Please welcome Debra Benton.
Thank you. I'm excited that instead of a presentation, we do kind of an interview to encourage you all to ask questions, because we will save time at the end, okay? Because this is a conversation. Isn't that what young people do? A conversation. We're having a conversation. Anyway.
So today we're here to talk about character, integrity, and fun, and leadership. And this event is sponsored by the Daniels Fund Ethics Initiative. And I had invited Debra to come, and with all the speakers, we give them a copy of our Daniels leadership, our ethics principles. And she just mentioned, hey, you know, I knew Bill Daniels. And so we started talking about that. And so you said you learned quite a bit from Bill Daniels, and you knew him. And so why don't we start and talk about that?
I'd love to, because talking about Bill, and that's Bill right there. You've seen that. And he wrote these. He didn't have a PR firm doing that. He wrote those. And Bill was, sadly he's been gone now for about 20 years, but he was literally like a father to me in business. And I had started my career early on and had called on him because I was in Denver. His firm was based in Denver, and he just saw maybe some potential and kind of took me under his wing. So I had some fun stories. In fact, before we get into the subject, I was reminiscing and thinking in a couple of fun ones. So one time because I want you to see, you see a picture like that or some other notable person who's passed, and you think, oh, you don't realize that person was just like you and I, with the same fears, frustrations, concerns, etc. And so a story, Bill and I were in the car one time, went to a gas station. He was, pumping gas, and he ran into the convenience store and brought out a couple payday candy bars. And he gave one to me, and I said, no, I don't want one. I'm not hungry right now. I said, put it in the glove box. So I opened the glove box, and about 20 payday candy bars fell out. So of course I asked him why, and he said that when he was young, growing up in New Mexico, that they were pretty poor, and that for Christmas he had asked for a payday candy bar for a present, and his parents said we can't afford it. And he, like a lot of people, whatever we kind of have as a setback in life, we overcompensate the rest of our lives. And every time he'd go into a store, he was compelled to buy a payday candy bar. But another story, in fact, some of Sharon joining me for lunch with some of my friends today. I did not do this, by the way, but we were at lunch one time at his home in Del Mar, and it was like a $15 lunch tab, nothing big. And he left a $15 tip. So I asked him about it, and he said, well, when he started his business years ago, based here in Colorado, and again, he's from New Mexico, Colorado, Wyoming, not New York, and he went to New York to try to persuade network people to back some of his Cablevision plans. And they, sophisticated New Yorkers, and so they had him, because he was going to buy dinner, had him take them to a pretty fancy restaurant. Now this was, she should have to be, in the early, or maybe late 50s. And anyway, and if that's the right date, it might have been 60s, but I think it's late 50s. And the restaurant tab came to $200. It'd be like $800 today, but it was $200. And Bill left a $10 tip. And the waiter, being a little bit surly, anybody from New York might know what I mean here, and the waiter came back in front of Bill, in front of all these people he's trying to impress, and he said, "Sir, you accidentally gave me $10 too much." And it mortified him so much that if he'd have a $15 tab, he'd leave a $15 tip. And so it's just interesting. Again, the humanity, and then one other fun thing, then we'll get to questions of what the subject here, but I like this, I'll never forget this. We were driving to dinner at the country club, and we were meeting with a couple of investors and the man they had hired to start Prime Sports Network. Is Prime Sports Network still in existence? It's kind of a precursor to ESPN. I don't know, is it Prime Sports? Anyway, it was a precursor to ESPN. He had the idea to create the sports network, and we were going to have dinner, and he let me come along so I could watch and observe. But anyway, on the way to dinner, he says, I want to stop at this bar. The game is starting and my team's playing. I want to see the start. And if you and I say my team's playing, we mean the Broncos or the Bears or the Nuggets. So fine, we pulled in, and it was the LA Lakers. And he was a part owner of the LA Lakers. So when somebody says to me, "Oh, my team's playing," I'm thinking, no, it's not your team. If you own it, that's your team. But anyway, that was just a funny story.
So tell us some of the things you learned about business from Bill.
Okay. Obviously, right along the lines of, because this was him in business, and if you haven't read these, please read them. But he always chose to do what was right for the team, the business, the company, even the economy. It wasn't what was right for him, all right? And that served him very well in life. One of the biggest lessons is his attitude towards people. And he was extremely tolerant to the differences. Way before, it's very popular now to be tolerant, right? Way before that, he was very tolerant. And I coined this phrase from listening to him, that the mindset that he lived, epitomized, and taught was one of giving acceptance to everyone, regardless of what job they had, background, age, sex, anything. He gave acceptance. And when I say gave acceptance, he explained he did not judge, criticize, or attack anybody's character, anybody's motive, or anybody's ability. The only thing he would address, attack, critique, criticize, and get changed was behavior. Everything was about behavior to him. No judgment of a person's background, character, where they came from, motive, ability. A kind of a visual depiction. It's like if this was him, and in all his success, this is where he put everyone. He didn't put them anywhere here because they were newer, younger, made less money, didn't have power, race, creed, color, didn't like their motivation, didn't like. Everybody got this. Clean slate all the time. Now, on the other hand, he approached life expecting that from you. If you dealt with him, he expected acceptance of what he brought to, which was a form of confidence. So if this was him, this is where he expected you to view him. He didn't tolerate people, okay? Anyway, so back to kind of an interesting story about giving acceptance, because that was what he lived. I mean, I'd see him talk on the phone to Diane Sawyer. Some of you have hair that my color know who Diane Sawyer is. You others don't, but she was like who's a young, anyway, she was a very famous broadcaster, okay? And he'd be on the phone with her and put her on hold because his janitor came in and he wanted to talk to the janitor and ask about the kids' basketball game. all right? And that was him. I saw him, he was meeting with the mayor of Denver, and he's supposed to walk in, and the janitor walks by, and he stops and talks to the janitor instead of running into the mayor, right? So he truly lived all this, and this giving acceptance was part of his character. Anyway, in my version of it, me really trying to emulate him, I was in San Francisco one day and doing several days, not one day, it was 1 week, and I was doing several days of work, and I went for a walk, 3 days in a row, pretty views, same routes, saw the same panhandler at this certain corner because he has his territory, just like other people, that was his. 3 days in a row, I did not give him any money, but I always saw him and acknowledged him, nod, hello, type of thing. 4th day, I'm doing the same walk, same route, see the same panhandler. As I got closer to him, he kind of straightened his posture, and he picked up his cup of coins, and he shook it, and he looked at me, and he says, I have enough money to buy you a drink. Now, for the record, I didn't take it. But that's what Bill was about, maintaining the self-esteem of others. And that's all this giving acceptance is. And if that's not clear, I'll give an example of a use. Should I give it? Okay, so like I would see him, and these are my words, but I can see him doing this. And say one of his people did a report and it wasn't very good. Okay, he wasn't happy with the behavior of the report. But he didn't attack the person's character, intelligence, motivation, laziness. No character, motive, or ability was ever attacked. Only, and I don't say attacked, addressed the behavior. So Bill had 2 choices. He could say to the guy, this report is crap, and I don't know where your head is. I'm not sure if you're smart enough to do this job, but we need to have you redo the report. That is not doing what he espoused. Instead, he talks to the guy and he'd say, this report is below the standard of excellence I've come to expect from you. I think you want to redo it. Either way, he's going to get the report redone, right? But you get it? The attitude, the mindset. If you get nothing out of your time today, but this truly embracing of expecting acceptance for what you bring to the table, but giving acceptance of others. He said one time, I'm very tolerant of others because I need to have people be tolerant of me. And so anyway, that's one of the things I learned, and I can tell you more. So
maybe as we have time, you want one more?
Okay. Actually, it's along the lines of physical comportment and appearance and things like this. He was very keen on not having to dress, with expensive clothes, but having neat and clean clothes to the level that you can afford. But most importantly, it was how you would meet somebody for the first time, because like we all know, the first impression, on and on. And so he would take his executives aside if they didn't do this right and teach them how to shake hands. Now let me just ask you, the ladies here, answer me, do you like the handshake you normally get from men? Go ahead, let me hear it.
I feel like they're thinking you're weak or something, and so they don't give a strong grip that they give other males.
Does anybody else experience that where you really kind of don't get the very good handshake? Okay, yeah, don't be shy, yeah. Because I ask women all the time and they say, yeah, we don't like it at all. And this is what we talked about in the bathroom, you guys. But Bill didn't like it, you didn't get a good handshake because he felt that kind of showed your character. And I caressed Jared into being in the front row so I could use him to come up here and shake hands. So come up here. But first, Now, so the reason ladies don't get a good handshake, it's our fault. One, they were told one thing by their mothers, don't hurt the little lady, or they don't want to squeeze too hard, on and on. And so they don't shake hands. Tell me, guys, do you shake hands to a woman like you shake hands with a guy? I know you don't. Okay, I know. Some of you are brave enough to admit it. But again, it's a woman's responsibility, because this is what women do. We extend our fingers, and he clasps the fingers, right? Okay. Guys don't shake hands like that. They shake palm to palm, right? So ladies, if you want to get a good shake, you got to go in there, right? If you happen to get a good shake, tell them you have a good handshake, okay? You will make their day, all right? If you get a bad one, make sure you register so that when you end and you shake again. Now, since we're talking about shakes, I have Jared up here. A couple things about shakes. I learned this not just from Bill, but just around leaders in general. What the left hand does is pretty interesting. If Jared and I knew each other, you might see a two-handed shake. Legacy, right? Okay? In fact, when John F. Kennedy, again, anybody know who John F. Kennedy is? Anyway, his very PR-oriented family commissioned a several $1,000 study to determine the most effective handshake, and every politician since then has done the two-handed handshake. Now, if you're trying this, this isn't it, okay? When you touch your own hand, that's not it. It's this. Anyway, but what's interesting in the left hand is the more you know somebody, the more you will see the left hand. If Jared and I knew each other more, you might say, good to see you, right? Did you see that? If we knew each other even more, you might say, good to see you, right? It's going to get better, Jared. If you even had more, you see the old corporate hug, where pelvises don't touch, right? Now, one of the things Bill believed in was doing what others don't. Have the courage to. And thank you for sitting in the front row. Having the courage to do what others don't. And seriously, if you want to be more memorable, impressive, credible, genuine, trusted, confident, comfortable, cool, calm, collected looking, intelligently observe what most people do in any situation you're in, and don't do that. You will stand out positively without being weird. Following that advice, I'm just about finished with you, but you're a good sport. Following that advice, there's a CEO friend of mine out in Tucson. He's about this tall and bulkier, and he says, every time I meet someone new, I give them a bear hug. They either relax and enjoy it, or go catatonic. But they never forget it. So, maybe the next new person calm down. I could be your grandmother, but I'm flattered. Anyway, you're a good sport. Thanks very much. So, physical, he would talk about shake hands, and he really was interested in that. So before we all leave, I think we should purposely shake hands, male to female, so you get to practice, okay? It's a good opportunity to meet women. You can go up and say, I'd like to shake your hand. It worked in my days, maybe it doesn't work in yours, I don't know. But the other thing is, and then I will stop and see back to some questions here, he was big on a look of delight. Probably that picture is the grimmest one I've ever seen, compared to, and you've seen so many, even the statue of him outside his office, and he always has a slight smile on his face, okay? He always looked happy. Well, there's many times he was losing millions of dollars in investments and stuff, but he always looked happy. And that's why when Sharon and I were talking about this, we talked about character and integrity in leadership, but fun too, because no one had more fun with, you say, millions you can have a lot of fun, but with nothing, you had a lot of fun. And so my advice to you, because I'm all for an expression that looks delighted. Right now, most of you young people are looking at me like this. And you walk across campus, I see you, and you're on your phone. This does not look delighted. You tell me, do you like that or this? Which expression? It's subtle. Let me do the first one again, the one you guys are doing. That's first. Here's second. Do you like second or first?
Second.
Who said first? You were just kidding, weren't you? You better say yes. close that trap. Children are to be seen and not heard. Wipe that silly grin off your face. Be professional. We're going to clench our jaws, purse our lips. Look professional. What we look is constipated and scared. So, again, the attitude I'd like you to walk away with is expect acceptance from anyone in any circumstances, because you have a God-given right to. Doesn't mean you don't work to get better, but you must feel I'm adequate, because you are adequate. And you treat others as adequate, too, without judgment on your part, because they will walk on coals for you if you do. And you show it with this kind of facial expression. It's that simple. It is so simple. And guys, it'll get the girls, okay? And girls, it'll get the guys. Walk around campus. If you say the words cheese whiz, go ahead. Cheese whiz. And then leave your mouth in that position. Just a little. I'm not asking for a smile. I'm asking for your lips apart, corners turned up just a hair. An awake, alert, alive look. And don't think it's a girly thing, because a woman's telling you. All the men, newscasters, male politicians, they work on this all the time. Until you die. And I want you to do this until you die. In fact, when you die, morticians will put a nipple between your lips so that your lips are a little open for eternity. And that's the truth. Next dead body, check it out. I am full of helpful information. Anyway, seriously, I'd sure love it if you guys will. That alone would separate you from all the other students who didn't bother showing up. You walk around like you are happy to be here, regardless of if you're mad, glad, sad, scared, because you will fool them, and you will be happier. And Bill had that slight smile all the time. Anyway.
And I just want to say, I said that Debra was a friend of NCB's. She does talks to my leadership class every year, usually by phone. But the cheese whiz, I saw some of my students smiling before you even said it. They knew cheese whiz was coming. But I had a student a few years ago who said he did that the rest of the day, all across campus, and he said it did make a difference.
It does. All I ask is that you give it a shot. I mean, for just 24-hour days, start your stopwatch or stop your stopwatch or whatever, and go around the cheese whiz.
And I'll also mention I told you I was in New York. Saturday night, you were requesting a table by the window so we could look at Times Square. And we're sitting there waiting, and when you're waiting, you just kind of, something like that. And I truly sat there and said, cheese whiz. Because I wanted that table.
Did you get it? Oh, good. And seriously, I know this sounds funny, and young people sometimes, you're not aware of the impact you have, and yet you're our future. You are who we are looking at. And when people are looking to hire and promote, they're looking at who looks like someone who will represent me well. And they want someone who looks comfortable, confident, happy, good-natured. They know you know nothing yet. Just kidding. Anyway, so they're hiring based on the personality that you show. And it's not this, okay? And by the way, you see the resting bitch face, right? You've heard about that, okay? And men, it's resting fart face. It's the same thing. And it is not a winner, all right? If you do nothing but walk around or a job interview or wait in the lobby, I'll ask you to try it. And email me and let me know if you don't have it. Something better happen.
Well, when Bill Daniels, toward the end of his life, he set up the Daniels Fund Foundation for one of the things that he wanted to fund was business ethics education. And so, what do you think about integrity in business in general? And there was a 2018 recent Edelman Trust Barometer that shows only 52% of the general population trust business, and then they also break it down into the informed population, and 64% of those people trust business. But I guess the good news is 72% say they trust their own companies, which is a little higher than general. And 70% of the respondents said that the building trust is the #1 job for CEOs today. So what's your views, and do you think integrity is lacking in business today?
Including politics. Well, let me ask you, give me a show of hands. Any of you probably worked somewhat, or at least you've had your parents and they talk about business. A show of hands of who trusts companies, corporations. A lot less than 60–70%, right? And I really think that's the thing. I'd be curious the age. One, I was shocked and pleasantly surprised by those statistics when you just told me. But I must have been, I don't know, it wasn't young people. I think there's more distrust than ever, maybe because you mistakenly listen to social media too much, and the liberal media, but I'm not going to get into that. That's a joke. That's not a joke. But anyway, but the point is, what was the question? Oh yes. So you can see that you all don't a lot. And it's probably because what you heard from your parents. And so it's your job to change it. You can be the change you want to see. Okay? And it starts with your own integrity. And integrity, trust, comes from simply doing what you said you'll do versus not. It's not difficult. And Bill used to say, I never lie, because then I have to remember what I made up. But really, if you think there's not a lot of trust, okay, that's your charge. You be the change you want to see. You make it different. But you know what? It's got to start one-on-one with one person, okay? And then maybe you can spread it around. It's interesting. I don't see anybody marching on Washington for character and integrity. Anyway, just a thought. So, whatever, I think, just to finish this, I do think it's, yes, in a company, it starts at the top, right? But you are the CEO of your life. So do not wait for it to filter down from some boss or from some family member or some teacher or professor. You're the CEO of your life. And you can start with developing, generating trust, character, integrity. Again, I think sometimes they define character as when you wake up, you do what you said you were going to do when you went to sleep. Okay? I mean, I used to always think about that, because you have the best intention. When I wake up, I'll study. When I wake up, and you wake up, and integrity, I know transparency. He would love the social media world because he was so for transparency. You never had to guess where he stood on things. But he always was pleasantly assertive, not aggressively assertive. Because he went back to maintaining the self-esteem of others while he got the behavior he wanted. I remember, and he was not afraid of going outside of his role or responsibility. He built a beautiful home. If any of you have been in Denver and seen it, it's on Alameda and Colorado Boulevard. It's called Cable Land. Any of you have seen that home that he built? It's 19,000 square feet, a beautiful home that he gave to the city for a venue for events like this upon his death. And I started that story because, what were we talking about? Yes. I still don't know where we started. Anyway, he would have loved social media because it was very transparent. Oh, that's really brilliant. I started this for some reason, but maybe it'll come back.
He would go outside his role.
Oh, thank you. One person's listening. So anyway, he built this beautiful home for special events, charity events, because he gave millions while he was alive and $1 billion, I think, after he died, to initiatives like this. And the neighbors complained when people, and he built the home for charitable events to raise money to give to people, plain and simple. And the neighbors started complaining to the police department that people were parked outside their house when they were inside raising money to give to people who needed it, right? And these were all privileged people in the neighborhood. And he immediately wrote a scathing letter to the neighborhood. And he said, how can you, in your privileged, environment, which we all appreciate, and you earned it and not taking it away, deny people help. And anyway, so even though he was not the CEO of the neighborhood, I mean, so he would love the transparency, he would love social media because he could just get out there faster and further, Fairness. He was as fair to people who, can I say, screwed him out of money? He was fair to them and treated them and forgot about it. And the next engagement, we'd go back and act like everything was okay. I couldn't understand it myself because so many times I thought, wow, burn me once, shame on me, burn me twice, shame on you, burn me twice, right? You know that expression? Is that an expression? Anyway, so I was just looking at the list here, and respect, rule of law, vitality, viability. Vitality too. He was married and divorced 4 times, so I guess that could be vitality or viability. he said, if I get reincarnated, I'd like to come back as one of my ex-wives. He said, because he took such good care of me. Maybe telling you more than you want to know.
So you touched on it a little bit, but what can we as individuals do to create a more ethical workplace?
No accident, no excuse, no this one time, no one will notice, no nothing. I mean, it's following these when no one notices, no one sees, and no one will test you on it because it's for you that you do it. Because you have to go to sleep with yourself at night. And like I said in the beginning, he never made this, I shouldn't say never, we all mess up. He tried never to make decisions that benefited him alone. And the surprising thing, it totally benefited him. And that's what you learn. When you do things right, sometimes in the short run, it doesn't seem like, and there's plenty of times that people will take advantage of you and will step all over you. But you stay the course with a demeanor that looks delighted in what's going on. Keep the attitude towards others. Don't be judgmental. Be confident. Feel adequate yourself. I can't emphasize enough. You're adequate. If you feel with anybody, well, I'm new, or I'm younger, or I don't have this, or I don't have the money, or I don't have the power, you're doing this to yourself. And I remember a different CEO said to me one day, I give people however they present themselves. If they expect acceptance, I do. If they don't, I don't. So while you give it, you expect it with whomever you are here. And you treat people here. You don't put yourself down, you don't put others down. You're here. I'm adequate is the self-talk that supports that. He's adequate. She's adequate. Doesn't mean you don't want to get better. I want to get better. But I'm coming from a place of adequacy. Just think about it. And Bill used to say this, it's the highest level of behavior you can have, feeling adequate. Because you're either adequate or inadequate. You judge people as adequate or inadequate. So it was the highest level of behavior. And I know to super grand achievers, you want to be super great, the calm, I'm adequate to deal with anyone under any circumstances, and I'm going to give them that too.
So what do you hope we get out of our time together today?
That you can have character, integrity, and all that, and make money, and have fun. Period. A lot of times people are taught people who make money are cheats or thieves. Okay, they had to get there. You don't have to. You can make money. Now, from what I hear about young people, you want to do good for society. I'm all for that. I'm not being facetious when I act facetious. Be serious, Deborah. Okay, I know you want to do good and on and on. I'll tell you a good way to do good is to be able to give people who need money, money. That means you got to make money. And you can make money in an honest way. So I guess I'm kind of talking about myself, but I want people to realize you can be a good business person, make money, and be a good person. And in fact, I remember this, I wrote this from some of my notes one time, who said, I'm far from perfect, but without these integrity goals, I'd be very, very, very far from perfect. And I just think that's a good thing to remember, because trust me, he did not feel he was perfect and did not hold himself out that way, but he tried. And every day he tried. Okay? And that's something else we can do. So, are we going to let them ask some questions? Yes. Anybody have some questions? Or just something you want me to talk about that might be of interest or benefit? And I will say one other thing. He was very keen on intellectual curiosity. He always was curious about everything. One of his famous sayings, if anybody ever talks to you who knew him, he said, his famous thing was, you never know. You never know who you're sitting beside on an airplane. You never know whose email you respond to. You never know whose phone call you respond to. He would always respond to everybody, even if it was, not on interested. But he would always respond because he said, you never know. You never know. It might be the daughter of your best customer, okay? It might be your future next ex-wife. You never know. Anyway, any questions? Anything you want me to talk about this bill or anything? Yes? Sure. Oh, we have this where you get to toss and you get to... Okay, good.
Speaking
Hello?
capital.
Hello?
Or just speak out.
Hi, my name's Matt. What was an instance that it tested you, like you felt disrespected, and what helped you get through it?
The first story that comes to mind was when but actually two stories. So if no one else asks questions, I might tell you the second one, but I'll tell you the first one. And this ties into how I met Bill, because I was a new business person. I started my company at age 23. I got into college early. I got into a good job early. I got fired early. And so I decided at an early age to start my own business, because then I wouldn't get fired again if I'm going to work for a jerk anyway. Might as well be myself, right? So at age 23, I started my own business, and it was a consulting kind of work. And I was in Denver, and you try to go as high as you can to call on a company for your services, and then if you get bucked down, it's better than starting here and getting bucked down here. So I tried to meet with Bill Daniels. I didn't know who he was other than seeing him in the paper and stuff, and so I tried to meet, and his secretary bucked me down to this person, number 2 or 3 person, I can't remember. So I had a 10 o'clock appointment on a Wednesday, and this is just one little example, by the way, but it just happens, it ties into Bill. So I have a 10 o'clock appointment on Wednesday to see this guy. So I show up at 10 till 10, so I'm there, and surprisingly, there's a man who shows up at about the same time, and he's in to see the same person at 10 o'clock. So number 2 guy had double booked 2 10 o'clock appointments. Plus, number 2 guy kept us waiting for like 45 minutes, right? And I knew sometime that door's going to open. He's going to come out and say, my 10 o'clock, come on in. So I probably gave some excuse how I had to stand up and stretch my back. So I'm standing and, looking at the art or reading the books in the shelves or whatever, and kind of edged towards the guy's door, because I knew when that guy came, I was going to be the one. I'm not going to be that other 10 o'clock guy getting in there. I was going to be right there. And I did, get right in. And then I came in, shake hands, sit down, and I said to the guy with not facetiousness, but I said, this appointment's not too important to you, is it? Why do you say that? Well, he said, okay, tell me what you can do. And so I told him, and he bumped me up to Bill. And said, Bill, I think you want to pay attention to what this gal has to offer. So that was one. But, what it takes is, back to what I said earlier, do what others don't. Very pleasantly, I called it on his behavior. Okay, not in a mean way, not in a nasty way, but kind of was inquisitive. And by the way, anything you want to say, if you can frame it in a question form, you can get away with it. This isn't very important, or this isn't very important to you, is it? Two different contexts there. But anyway, but I have one other story if you want me to tell you about. But I don't want to, if somebody else has some questions. Okay, if we have time, I'll tell you something. Go ahead. All right.
Hello. Well, my name is Luis Cotto, and when you say that we are the future, I think of entrepreneurs, and as yourself, for starting your own company. So, do you mind just giving, entrepreneurs just former advice, or how do you, what makes an entrepreneur? I think, I guess what I'm trying to say is, how do you take risk? Because I feel like when you're an entrepreneur, it's a risk-taking decision. So what advice do you have in regards to that?
We could talk all day on that. Could you hear the question enough about entrepreneurs take risk? A couple things. When I started my business, the desire was to, make a living, right, without someone telling me what to do and maybe building something. I hear from young people now, their entrepreneurial dreams are to build something, probably technology related, and sell it in 2 years and go on to something else. And I'm always one for the game, the journey, not the end. Because the end is not going to come like you think it is. It's not going to come. Even for goal setting, if I ever tell anybody about goal setting in my own self, I say, I picture what I want. And I say to myself, I want this. And I always add, or something better. Because life is going to throw you a curve. But the thing about entrepreneurship is you get to make the decisions you live under. You get to make your own mistakes that you live under, because you live under other people's mistakes. You get to be the change you want to see. If you're starting out, you got to be very fiscally conservative and really, do things on a penny, not a dime. It'd be nice if you have a partner who supports you. Tenacity to keep at it when everybody tells you. Whatever you have to offer, I like to think in terms of what they want to buy, not what I want to sell. That's kind of basic marketing, because maybe I want to sell fishing bobbers shaped like a woman. But unless you want to buy those, it's not a good product. It's actually, my blushing here. It's easier to sell. You can sustain longer if you sell a service which doesn't require inventory and that kind of thing out of pocket. So those are just some ramblings about that. But I'm proud. I started my business, so now this will be my 42nd year, if you're doing the math, 64. Not as bad, no. But for 42 years, in fact, before my dad died, I was very proud that he said to me one day, I'm so proud of you never having to take crap off anybody, always running your own business. And by the way, I'm all for it. Very few people can run their own business because we have to have corporations, we have to have universities, we have to have organizations. So I'm not saying I'm better, but I was able to survive. And 1 year I made more than GM. Because I made $1 more, because they were bankrupt. So, and there were many, many, many lean years, by the way. And but I read a book when I first started my career. I want to be respectful of other people with questions here, but I read a little book called, I don't even know if it's out there anymore. It's called Money Love, because this was like, 45 years ago, 42 years ago. Anyway, the gist of the book was, every day, add to your self-value. It might mean you make $1, or you save $1 using a coupon, or you learn some new way to handle the problem. But every day you add to your self-worth. And I think anybody starting out in their career or in an entrepreneurial venture, if you can go to sleep and think of, how did I add to my self-worth today? You're a success, okay? Even if you do not choose an entrepreneurial route, because it's not for everybody, you still are, like I said earlier, the CEO of your life. Okay, you're the entrepreneur of your life, and you run it the way. So, any other questions? Yes.
Hi, my name is Michael Dublin. My question is, how do strong leaders accumulate, filter, and then apply various information without becoming overwhelmed?
Could you all hear that okay? I need to write that down. So accumulate.
Filter, and then apply.
Okay. I don't know. I think, one, I'm feeling like I can. I'm adequate to do it. Two, really deliberately being around others who can help add to your self-worth, help learn, help teach. Apply, have the guts to try, and when you mess up, be the first to say, whoops, I was wrong, my bad. Even, and especially if, say you're around people, and they do something that it messes up, and you say, my bad, when it wasn't your bad. That's going to help you apply whatever good leadership is, because people are going to want to follow you. And if they don't want to follow you, you are not a leader, okay, no matter what your title. And the thing is about a job, you being stellar in it is not sufficient. You have to cause others to be stellar too. And a lot of young people, naturally, we want to make our mark, we want to prove how good we are and how hardworking, and we work on being a star. While you're being a star, if you can lend a hand, help others, push others up, that will cause you to move up. Because people get moved up in their career two ways. They're pulled up from above by senior people who see the talent and the effort, and pushed up from below by the people you helped get better, so they push you up. Okay? Too many times people think, if I get better, that's going to be, And I can remember actually one woman was sent to me, an engineering woman, and quite accomplished in engineering, and her boss wanted her to work with me in a coaching capacity to kind of develop her leadership skills. Because, again, being a specialist and technically brilliant is necessary but not sufficient. You have to affect people well. That's what this is. Causes people to want to work with you, be around you. So just being a star. Anyway, so this boss was sending this woman to me, and she said, I don't want to work on this soft stuff and these people skills. I just want my work to speak for itself. And her boss leaned over and he said, then it better speak louder. Because no matter how brilliant you are, others are brilliant too. The differentiator is the effect you have on others. And the effect you have on others is based on your integrity, your character, their willingness to trust you. Bosses tell me all the time, if I can get someone I can trust, it's one less problem I have. They have to worry all the time. Who's going to steal from them? Who's going to mess up? Who's going to hide some mistake? Who's going to blow something? If there's some, blow a project or whatever. Said, if I can have somebody that I can trust, it's one less thing off my plate. So it doesn't take a lot to... So how politicians get elected, I have no idea. On the Democratic side, anyway. I thought you were throwing that at me for a second.
So I was curious, have you ever seen Bill Daniels ever fail his own ethical principles, and how do you correct that? Or if not Bill, then what about you?
Me, no. In fact, actually, when Sharon and I were first talking about this, and I said to one of my friends, I said, I'm the last person who should be talking about character and integrity. That was a joke. But actually, I truly, I mess up all the time. But like Bill said, and Bill would do it, he would mess up all the time. But he would just try to be better the next time. That's all. Try to be better. And be a bit forgiving of yourself. And definitely don't blame someone else for your mess up. And just say, I'll try better next time. A specific thing, I can't think of, Bill married and divorced 4 times. And that was a public thing. I'm not speaking gossip here. He really felt he messed up. Each time he, tried again. And trust me, I've made so many mistakes, I just forgot to tell you. I'll just tell you. Oh, sorry. Okay. We'll catch you next time.
My name is Video Gutierrez, and I was just wondering, everybody says it's a dog-eat-dog world out there.
Everybody says what?
It's a dog-eat-dog world out there. Does business have to be cutthroat? And then I have a second question, depending on your
Who was it? Is it? This is mine. Is Darwin, who talked about survival of the fittest? Okay? It always has and always will be. Where there's competition, and it just doesn't have to be climbing on someone else's back to succeed, because you will get somewhere doing that for a while. But the ones you climbed up on the way, okay, they might leapfrog ahead, and then they will. People don't forget. In fact, people have very long memories. In fact, who was it? I was doing an event this weekend helping a young candidate out. And I met some of his family, and here, one of the family members I had gone to school with, in high school, 46, 45, I don't know how many years ago. And he said, oh yeah, and he remembered something about me that I had done good in high school. And I thought, and everybody said, oh yeah, we heard that too. And I thought, wow, what if it was about, the jail time and the drug abuse that you met? Just kidding. But what you're doing right now, everybody around this level who knows you, I'm going to remember in 40 years from now, oh yeah, you asked that question of that really dynamic speaker one time. So it's not too early to start being non-dog-eat-dog, is all I'm saying, okay? And again, you don't have to be a pushover, you don't have to be a wimp, but a good way to consider handling any situation is pausing and saying, okay, what if I was the one who was doing this to me, like he's doing? What if, somehow, flip it around, what if I was one? What would I want them to do? And if you do that. When I met my husband, we were both older by the time we met and married, and he was a cowboy and I traveled a lot. And so I was always on the road, and I'm sure that was kind of, a little different for his wife to be gallivanting all over the country and things like that. And he made this simple, policy in our family. He said, anytime you have any opportunity to do something that, you wonder, should I do it, should I not, should I go to dinner with this guy, or should I have a drink with him? He says, just think, would you want me to do it? And if you're okay with it, then you can do it. And if you're not, then don't. And, it's not anything new in life, and yet it's like we forget it. So, yes, you can ask something.
So Debra, you talk about character integrity. What's the fun part of your leadership?
I hope by some of these stories, but the fun is you use this to build a business. It does well. You get money and then you get to play with your money, all right? And playing could be buying that ski jet or that Porsche, or it could be writing out a check for $10,000 because you see somebody on the street who needs it and you give them it, okay? Or hand out a $100 bill, or give a 100% tip to the waiter who's busting their rear serving you. So the fun part, and it's also freedom. Okay? If you're a good person, you have less to worry about. You don't have to watch your back, and it's more fun. I can't emphasize, it's like all of life should be fun, and we make the drama and the grief because of us doing something illegal, immoral, and unethical. If you just stop illegal, immoral, and unethical, it'll be a whole lot more fun. You know?
Yeah, so I have a question about like the ethics side of things. We know that ethical people can still make unethical decisions, no matter how ethical they are. So what do you think personally is like the biggest reason that people, even if they are ethical, make unethical decisions? Like peer pressure, or the circumstance that they're in, or is there a direct answer to that even?
I'd be curious what you all think. I'm thinking money is a big one. Ego, actually I'm going to say ego is the biggest, and money. And I remember reading years ago in Forbes magazine or Fortune about a guy who was a CEO of a company. And he said he had been fired from another company, say 5 years ago. And his vow to himself was to get into a position to acquire the company that fired him and take him out. And he was quite proud of that fact. And so was it ethical? I kind of wonder, but it was ego. So I'm going to go with ego is the number one reason, and sometimes money, sometimes fear. I don't know, maybe you also have other, maybe ego.
So you got to give yourself that reality check.
A what?
Give yourself kind of a reality check if you are in that position and kind of let me see how I'm going to make the right decision.
Yeah, and that's pretty hard to give yourself a reality
That's
check when
exactly.
you're so, and also, you got money pressures and you got all those things. And I know we have time for maybe one more question.
This guy right in the back has been wanting to.
I'm sorry, I didn't see you. I want to see you. Okay.
So you were talking a lot about how he was treating people like the mayor the same way he would treat the janitor, which is with complete respect. And it's almost seen as something to strive for. But, shouldn't that be the norm? I guess my question is, do you think it's hard for people to treat their fellow man as an equal? Or what barriers present themselves that prevents that?
Ego, jealousy of accomplishment. One thing, any of you exceed in anything in life, you're going to have some enemies, because people are jealous of you. And when they're jealous, they don't say, how did you get that way? I would like to learn from you. They say, boy, you're a jerk. Okay? When people are jealous, and yes, that should be the way it is, but I guess Adam and Eve eat that apple, and then the rest of us are, So, but you're right, that's the way it should be. And the beauty is, in your life, it can be. Think of the peace, the contentment, the lack of having to worry what people are thinking. It's just you alone. And I mess up plenty of times, but I try. And so kind of to your. So I think we're out of time. I mean, I'm loving talking to you, but I think we have a reception and we can talk more downstairs.
Right, so this concludes.
And it's tequila.
No. Despite your request. So this ends this portion, but down in the boys' room, 40, downstairs in the basement, we will have continued conversation and have some refreshments. And so please join us down in the boys' room 40.
But first, everybody who asked a question, stand up.
So Mackenzie.
Everybody who asked me a question, stand up.
Hey,
okay?
What's your name? Jared.
Jared gets one for helping.
Yes, and pass these out.
So this is my latest book, and the idea was we tried to look at leadership, and by the way, catch me at the reception, I'll autograph it, and then you'll get more when you resell it. So anybody else ask a question?
I can ask a question.
You two get it because you sat in the front row, right there. See, doing what others don't has payoff. You didn't ask before you leave. Okay. Anybody else? Because we have more. Jared, yeah, definitely you give it Jared. Okay. And we have some more. I guess you could say, I would like one, Deborah.